Hello and welcome to today's morning briefing, afternoon briefing, that should be, from Hearts Standard. I am James Cairney, and today I'm joined by Scott McIntosh of Amoruso Exit Run fame. How you doing, Scott?
Yeah, very well. Thanks, James.
Excellent, excellent. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear it. So today we're going to be looking at the Dundee game tomorrow. Obviously, we'll look ahead to that. We'll touch on the transfer window as well. But I think just now there's only one place we can start, and that's with the news that Liam Boyce, he definitely won't be playing against Dundee tomorrow, and in fact won't be playing for quite some time. When Naismith had a press conference earlier today, and he explained what was going on. So he was asked about Cammy Devlin, Peter Haring, and he said that Cammy's back with the grip training but isn't ready for squads. Peter Haring's still dealing with a knee injury picked up at Livingston, while Liam Boyce has had a setback in his recovery and will need surgery. That sounds dramatic, but we're looking at a timeline of 6 to 8 weeks for Boyce. His hamstring injury proved to be more of a tendon issue rather than purely muscle. So I guess what are your thoughts then when you first hear that then, Scott? Because we know that obviously Boyce has not played since December. He's not been in the first team for a while, even before that. Obviously, he's still coming back from injury at the start of the season. But now it looks like for the next, perhaps even up to 2 months, he's not going to be playing for Hearts. How do you see that impacting the team during that time?
I suppose it depends on what happens with other players. Our form since Boyce's picked up that injury has been great. We are thin on the ground though for forwards. I think it's fair to say that Kyosuke Tagawa has not really impressed. He hasn't had any game time since he started the match against Spartans, and he's probably reasonably out the picture just now. So it does leave us a little bit light in that area. And again, just reinforces why it's so important to keep Lawrence Shankland at least until the summer. But yeah, I'm hoping it's not going to impact too much. I still think in terms of the formations and the setups that we've seen over the previous weeks and might see over the coming weeks, we should be fine. But again, it just depends on whether we get any more injuries in that sort of forward area. That's when it would maybe have more of a bearing.
Yeah, no, it's a really good point you make, actually, the fact that, Boyce has been out of the team, and that's also coincided with the team's great run of form. Now, obviously, we're not saying that that's why, but it does raise the question of, even if Boyce is fully fit, is he in the strongest 11 at this point? You know, is that, or is he slipped down the pecking order, do you feel?
I think it can depend on the type of fixture. I still think that there is an argument to say that he can bring out the best in Shankland, especially if he's maybe just playing in a bit of a deeper role, which allows Shankland to maybe just stay up top and just be that sort of pivotal role in that number 9 role for us. Again, I don't think he would play week in, week out anyway. And I think, whenever I've sort of discussed squad options over the last few weeks, I've always counted, Liam Boyce is a really good squad option. It was great news when they extended his contract another 12 months. And I still think that he will have something to offer Hearts when he comes back from this latest injury setback. But yeah, again, it just hinges on keeping other players fit. If we can keep Shankland fit, and to a lesser degree, if we can keep options like Forrest and Vargas fit as well, then it hopefully won't have too much of an impact on us.
Well, here's hoping. Graham in the comments, I'm just seeing, makes a similar point. He's saying, afternoon, guys, can't help feel we could have done with adding another striker to take pressure off Shankland. Really hope Tagawa's going to improve. And I guess, when you look at it then, and we will move on to the transfer window shortly, but it's an interesting point that Graham raises, because now we look at it, obviously, like you say, Kyosuke Tagawa has not really shown that he's up to the job so far. Certainly not at this point of the season anyway. You look at the likes of Forrest and Vargas, where they can play up front. Is that their best position? Possibly, possibly not. And I guess when you look at it now, when you look back at the last few weeks of the January transfer window there, do you feel as if another striker option was required, or do you think that with the options that Naismith already has available to him, do you think that's enough, knowing now that Boyce is going to be out for the next 6-8 weeks?
Yeah, I think in a perfect world, we would have maybe another forward option. And there's a chance that the club were maybe looking were maybe trying to see if there was something there. But again, I think they've been really consistent with the message of, unless it's somebody that's going to come in and improve on the squad or on the team, then it's not worth just throwing in another body. I think if you look at the transfer activity around us, the only forward that someone's brought in yesterday where you would think that would have added something would be Van Veen. I mean, Celtic have struggled to bring in anyone over the line, so they've brought in a loan player. Rangers have loaned someone in. Hibs have loaned someone in. So yeah, I don't think you tend to find that if somebody's hitting form for their club, there's a good chance they're not going to be available in January. So Van Veen's probably the only one, but I think there was a fee attached to the loan deal. I think somebody was going to have to stump up somewhere between 100, 150k. So the club have probably looked at that. There's probably a chance that he's been offered to the club. I would imagine the agent had probably pretty much offered them to just about every club in the Premiership over the last 24, 48 hours. But I think given the financial package around it, I can understand why the club have maybe balked at that move as well. But yeah, I still think we'll be fine. And the fact that we've signed Scott Fraser hopefully means that we've got another option from midfield that can add in with goals as well, and maybe just help relieve that burden off his Shanklin. I think the good thing is, over the last 3 fixtures, we've scored 7 goals, but we've also had 7 different goal scorers, which is really good, considering how important Shanklin's been in that respect over the last 2 to 3 months. So hopefully that can continue. Maybe Fraser will come in, maybe play a bit more of an advanced midfield role, and he can hopefully show what I've seen in clips of him, making late runs in the box and maybe popping up with a goal or 2 as well.
Yeah, I mean, I've been watching clips of Fraser as well, and that's kind of my impression, is that he's really quite effective in the final third, particularly when kind of spaces at a premium, when he's not got much time in order to figure out what he's going to do. He seems to be quite quick thinking, quite active, and I think that's really encouraging. Just on the striker situation as well, I see in the comments Darren Neal saying blood the young striker. I'm assuming that means James Wilson, I would imagine, who obviously came on against the Spartans and gave a good account of himself. I think he looked pretty all right. Again, there are options from the academy as well. The other option would be Mackenzie Kirk as well, of course, is always impressing for the B team. Again, if Hearts do find themselves short of options later on in the season up top, Naismith could obviously look at the academy, look at the B team. We've already seen the success of likes of Denham, Tate in recent weeks as well, so we could absolutely see that. Graham Duthie as well asking, could there be an option of a free agent coming in? I would think that's unlikely at this point, to be honest, Graham. Look at this. It could technically happen, of course, maybe, but I think just judging from when you hear Naismith talking about the way the squad and the kind of makeup of it, I think it's unlikely we're going to see anyone come in. It's theoretically possible, but it's difficult to envisage in reality, I think. So we'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, I think you tend to find as well, though, with free agents around this time of year, they tend to be players that haven't played a lot of football. So you're saying Boyce is out for maybe 8 weeks. It would probably take at least 5 to 6 weeks to get somebody fully match fit. If you were bringing them in and they maybe hadn't had much game time. So again, I understand why fans come up with those options, but again, I can understand why the club probably wouldn't look at that avenue just now.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm just getting told as well in the comments, Mickey Williamson saying Kirk's out on loan. He's absolutely right, of course. Sorry, he's at Hamilton Accies. So apologies for that to everyone. That's completely slipped my mind. But again, so we'll look now just a wee bit at the transfer window in its kind of entirety now, Scott, that we know it's finished, we know it's done. So as you say, we've got Dexter Limbakisa's coming on loan, replacing Adela Faya, who returned to Brighton. There's obviously Alex Lowry's left on, went back to Rangers. He's been replaced in the squad by Scott Fraser. I would argue they're both two fairly like-for-like signings in terms of the positions they play and their kind of roles within the squad and within the team. We saw Andy Halliday, of course, left the club as well. And we also saw a pre-contract struck for Jan Danda, who will be arriving in the summer. We're still waiting the official announcement from the club from that, but by all accounts, it's absolutely a done deal. And so when you look at that, then when you reflect on it now that it's done, we know Shanklin's staying, we know that the holes in the squad that needed fixed have been fixed. How do you reflect on the window as a whole then?
Yeah, I think that's been a really good window. And what I like is that the club they've not panicked. I think they've dealt with everything really well. And specifically from a communication point of view, I think they've been pretty good at handling the noise that's sort of come from out with the club regarding Shankland. And I'm not having a go at Rangers here. I don't think Rangers have had any impact on this at all. But I think because this is such a big time of year for journalists and sort of media outlets, you know, any suggestion of a rumour or a sniff they're going to jump on. And obviously with Shankland's form, that was always going to be a sort of hot topic for them. But really, I think the club have done well to respond to. I would say there's been examples of maybe when the agents of Lawrence Shankland have maybe tried to put a bit of pressure on them, and they've maybe leaked bits and pieces of news to some of the red tops. But I think Hearts have responded to that well, sort of advised that they're offering contracts, and then they've sort of put that deadline there as well. Although that deadline's passed, I don't think that's the end of the situation. I still think there'll be some negotiating between both sides between now and the summer. And who knows? Who knows what will happen? I think for most Hearts fans, though, there was always an understanding that there was a good chance he would leave in the summer. And I think a lot of people have kind of made peace with that. I think a lot of fans are reasonably not happy, but they understand the situation, especially given his age. If he wanted to get one last really good payday, there's a good chance he might leave in the summer, albeit for a reduced fee compared to what we were asking for in January. But the benefits of keeping him in terms of sort of strengthening that grip on third spot and making a cup run as well, and hopefully pushing for the Scottish Cup, cannot be understated. So yeah, I think it's been a great window. I think Liam Boyce has been a solid player for us over the last 2 or 3 games. What I've liked is we've got to see both sides of him. So I think in the Dundee and Spartans game, it was all about what he could offer us sort of going forward. But I actually think he showed up quite well defensively against Aberdeen. I think particularly in one-on-one situations, similar to Atkinson, I think he showed up pretty well in those circumstances where he didn't dive in. And he sort of managed to, play the man pretty well.
There's that point in the Aberdeen game. I remember when he ran back, I can tell you how many yards, but it was him and Duke basically running just the length of the touchline, and he managed to still, I'm sure he kind of halted them in his tracks, won the ball back. And you're right, it was a side of his game that, to us, it was really nice to see. It was quite comforting to see, because I was a little bit concerned after the Dundee game, because I think there were 1 or 2 hairy moments at the back, or a few moments where his passing was a bit like, oh God, what's he up to? But again, I think we did see that other side of his game, that little bit more rigorous, a bit more streetwise side of it against Aberdeen, which, again, I think that when you look at the impact he's made, and he's only played 3 games so far, one of them's just off the bench for the last half hour or so, and I think that in that short space of time, he's shown that it will be quite good competition for Atkinson, even when Atkinson comes back from the Asian Cup. Right now, on current form, there's no guarantee that Atkinson gets back into the starting 11. I wouldn't have said.
Yeah, I would agree, and I think Fraser's an astute signing as well. It's pretty, in terms of risk, it's extremely low risk. He knows the league. He's been chomping at the bit to get back up here, like he says, for family reasons. So you would think that there's an incentive, not just from a footballing standpoint, but also from a personal standpoint, to make a real impression over the next few months. And again, he's just a slightly different player to what we've got just now. I think he is someone who is quite comfortable in and around the sort of penalty box, and he's also pretty decent from set plays as well. So I think that's someone who, at worst, will provide a good option for us until we get Jan Danda in on that permanent contract in the summer.
I know, because I know there was obviously a lot of talk about whether or not Hearts should push out the boat in January and just get Danda done as quickly as possible. Now, me and Joel have talked about this before, and we felt that it's quite similar to Shankland's situation at Hearts, where he's one of their better players. It's an important season for them. They've got every incentive not to sell. And obviously financially, Ross County don't really have anything to worry about from that side of things as well. I just wondered, is that how you felt about it as well, or were you quite keen to see Danda come in and maybe at the expense of Fraser, maybe not coming in?
I think it would be nice to have seen him come in, but I don't think it's a huge issue. I think Ross County they've taken steps to try and make him feel as wanted as they possibly could. I saw that he was made captain for the Livingston game during the midweek match earlier on in the week. And again, you can't complain about teams trying to sort of lowball you for Shankland
Aye.
And then sort of say, oh, well, we should have just threw 50 grand at them and they would have accepted it. So I can understand from Ross County's point of view how much value Jan Danda brings to the team, and he could be the difference between them finishing in that sort of playoff spot and finishing just above it. So again, I think I don't think it's a bad deal at all. I think it works okay for Ross County. We know what we're getting in the summer. Hopefully he can continue the form that he's shown under Adams over the last couple of months. And yeah, bringing in Fraser just seemed like such the signing just makes complete sense, and that's what I've really liked. I think the profile he's signing this summer, this window's been really good. I think there's been times over the last 2 or 3 years where I sometimes would doubt the sort of profile a player that we're looking at. Whereas I think this window we've been really good with that. We've set our stall out at the start. We said who we needed to bring in terms of filling in certain positions, and we've done that, and we've kept Shanklin. So really, it's a 10 out of 10. I don't think the club could have done any better than they have done.
Because I wrote something that went up on the site this morning, and I was basically just talking about the fact that I think that it's not been a dramatic window. It's not been like full of like, oh, who are we bringing in? Who's that? Who could we possibly sign? All these rumors, speculation, like bids and all the rest of it. It's not really been like that. It's been pretty quiet and pretty not underwhelming, obviously, because Hearts did get players in, but we all knew that these were the kinds of players that we're after. We all knew, for instance, the Fraser one, we knew for the best part of 2 weeks or something like that it was going to happen. It was just a case of waiting for the paperwork to get pushed through. But like you say, I think that was probably exactly what was in order for Hearts. I think that everyone just get the new right back in. If Lowry's way back to Rangers, get him replaced, and then obviously keep a hold of Shankland, and then anything after that's a bonus. So I think that I think it's got to be a really encouraging window, and also just obviously Danda's coming in the summer. That'll be great, and there's also chat around James Penrice as well from Livingston. I saw David Martindale earlier today was asked about him at his press conference, and he was basically touting him for a move to Hearts, which is obviously not like David Martindale to tout his own players for a move elsewhere, but he was basically saying that he thought Hearts would be a great option for him, that he might have to. He also said that he might end up waiting until the summer before making a decision to see what his options are like, because obviously we all know as soon as you become a free agent, all sorts of possibilities open up to you. But I've got to say, I think that it's a really astute signing, and like you say as well, like if it was to go through, if Hearts were to go for him, but even just the fact they're interested in targeting him, I think that's really encouraging, because like similar to Danda, this is a player who is 24, 25 years old. He's got a couple, 2 or 3 seasons Premiership experience under his belt in a struggling team. He's better than the team he's playing for, with the most respect you can give to the utmost respect to Livy and County. And I think that, again, it's another area of the squad where Hearts probably do look a little bit light. Again, me and Joe touched on this yesterday, but you look at that left-hand side of the Hearts defence. If Stephen Kingsley picks up an injury, then Alex Cochrane's going to find himself playing an awful lot of football at the moment, because there's not really any other options there. So I think that I think it's quite an astute signing. Again, it's one where, for me, I don't think it's one that had to get pushed through in January. I think it's one that's worth waiting for. And I think that, again, come the end of it, I think that if it was to go through, I think it'd be another really savvy addition. I mean, I don't know, that's my thoughts, but what do you think?
No, I would agree, and I think it's a very proactive move for the club, and that's what I like to see. I think that they've already got one eye on potentially what will happen with Alex Cochrane in the summer. By that time, he'll be entering the last year of his contract. He'll have been at the club 3 years. I think a player of his age and ability will probably not sign another contract, if I'm being completely honest. I think we'll probably see Alex Cochrane leave in the summer. And I think what the club are trying to do is identify, again, potential replacements for that role. I've been impressed with Penrice. I think, in particular, what he possibly has on Cochrane is, I would say, he's probably got a better final ball from what I've seen. Maybe
he's a good cross for the ball. Yeah, he's always been like that. I remember watching him. He's always like that,
Yeah, and he's got that profile of a player similar to Forrest and Shanklin in that, where he's had to work through the leagues. And I think when you get players of that ilk, they're good for the squad. And this is no disrespect to James Penrice, but similar to Forrest, when they sign for Hearts, that probably will represent the sort of apex zenith of their career. So I think, it's always easier to sort of integrate those players into the squad. They're not going to kick up too much of a fuss if they're maybe used in a rotational sense for a few games as well. So to me, it makes sense. And again, it fits in with that profile that I think a lot of Hearts fans have wanted to see the club move into. And that's sort of identifying players that can improve our squad, weaken the opposition as well, and not need 4 or 5 months to settle in. I mean, you never know with the likes of Tagawa and Neuenhoff and that, it still might happen for some of these guys. But again, there's always a bigger risk because there's not just the football aspect, but there's also a bit of a cultural sort of setting in period for some of these players as well. You don't have that issue when you're signing a Penrice or a Fraser or bringing in Jan Danda. So again, I think kudos to the club. I think they're doing things really well just now. They're being smart with their business, but they're also, again, like you say, what I liked about this window is it's look, I get it. Short term, it's great to always hear about rumours and see people coming through and catch up on their profile and see what they can potentially bring. But it always leads to upheaval over a 4 or 5 month period. We've seen that before when Hearts have had to sort of go in with a more scattergun approach when it comes to January windows. I think, if you think back to 2017 under Cathro, we brought in a lot of players who had decent CVs, but you were trying to integrate them all mid-season into a team. And I don't think that benefits a lot of teams. I know there's 1 or 2 clubs in the league that have had to do that, but I don't think that's I don't think that they're in a better position than us. I think the fact that we've identified 2 positions and we've hit them means that we know what we're doing and we're in a comfortable position. And really, it should mean that there's not too much of an impact on the sort of consistent runny form that we've shown over the last few weeks as well.
Absolutely. Well, I guess on that run of form, I guess we'll all be hoping that it continues tomorrow afternoon at Dens Park. It's a venue where Hearts, of course, lost 1-0 earlier in the season, but obviously last week's match at Tynecastle provides a wee bit of cautious optimism there. The fact that, yes, Dundee went 2-0 up, but credit to Hearts, they managed to come back, they turned it round, and they managed to get the 3 points in a 3-2 win. So, looking ahead to Dundee then, do you think that, obviously that game, I'm thinking back to the game at Tynecastle, that game was one when Hearts started with the back 3. The first half didn't go according to plan, I think it's fair to say. And then obviously it's for the second half, it came out in the 4-2-3-1. Do you think we'll end up seeing the 4-2-3-1 as a result then?
No, I actually think Craig Halkett will come back in. I think there'll be a concern about the sort of physical presence that Robinson and Bakayoko can bring to that forward line.
Because of the handful at Tynecastle, they were a real handful.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Craig Halkett had a poor night at the office, okay, and this can happen to every player, especially somebody who's coming back from a long-term injury. But I think we'll see a return to the free tomorrow, and I think Halkett will come back into the team.
And in that case, so what do you think the midfield will look like then? Do you think we could see Scott Fraser pitched straight in, or do you think probably George Grant more likely?
I think Grant's done enough over the last couple of games to warrant a bit of an extended stay in the team. I think, Beningame and Neuenhoff have showed up well, in particular the second half, see the last 2 fixtures as well. And obviously Cochrane and Lembikisa pretty much picked themselves as well. So I think it's just who probably then plays maybe just off of Shankland. You've got a couple of options here. Forrest has played well, but it wouldn't surprise me to see them drop Forrest and bring in Vargas and maybe potentially go with Vargas and Shanklin up top, just so that they've got an option to try and stretch Dundee and play balls in the back of them and maybe just try and get us a bit of possession and a bit of time up in their end, especially if we are going to play with that sort of back 3. It's probably going to be difficult for us to play from the back because most teams identify Frankie Kent as that sort of weak spot of the back 3 in terms of when we're on the ball. So if we're going to play with the 3, I think we've got to identify that is going to be a bit of a challenge for us. So having Vargas up top gives us an alternative option, similar to what you saw at Livingston earlier on last month. So that's probably how I see the teams shaping up, which is a bit unfair on Forrest because he's played well again. But again, I think it's good knowing that we've got options like him and potentially, the likes of Fraser to bring off the bench if we need them as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that you're right. I mean, it'd be exceptionally harsh to drop Alan Forrest on current form just because I think he's been excellent particularly the last 3, 4, 5 games. one of Hearts' best players, I think, over that stretch. But you're right. I mean, it's just that there's that thing where he can maybe play off the striker, but Vargas is probably better suited to that, I would think. And even though, and I guess having something like Forrest on the bench, should you need to change the shape, should you need to change something, if it's a poor first half again, then he's not exactly a bad option to turn to. But I think either way you look at it, it's two good options you've got up front, because you've either got Alan Forrest, who's been in excellent form, or you've got Kenneth Vargas, who's been in the best form of his Hearts career so far over the last 4 or 5 games. So again, it's not a bad decision that Naismith's got to make. It's not exactly an unenviable one. There's not really many two wrong choices there. But I've got to say, I think it will end up being the 4-3-3 we're going to end up seeing tomorrow. 4-2-3-1, sorry, with kind of Grant in the advanced position. And I think that Halkett might end up missing out for this one, to be honest. I just think if you're picking a back four and you're keeping Cochrane at left back, I think that Kingsley and Kent have looked just a bit more solid than Halkett. I think that Halkett is still, while he is improving game by game, I think he's still not quite 100% yet. And I think we saw that particularly in the Dundee game. I think he had a few dodgy moments at the back for sure, and it could have ended up a wee bit worse. So it will be interesting to see what happens. I just think that the back three, I wonder if just Naismith would be just worried that it would just happen again. I think that both the goals conceded were kind of the result of individual errors rather than anything systemic. So I can certainly see the argument, but and I think as well, just away from home, generally my thoughts would be go for the back three, give yourself a defensive foundation, see what happens from there. But I just think in this specific instance, I look at it and I just go, I just don't know if Naismith will. I think the other night will be playing on his mind a wee bit, to be honest, and I think that it will just go right. Well, that worked last time. Okay, it's a different game. It's a different conditions. Hearts won't be trailing 2-0 this time. This time they won't be chasing the game. Dundee won't be sitting back. But at the same time, it did work really well. And I think we'll probably end up seeing that, but we shall see. Right, Scott, I'm going to put you on the spot now. I'm going to ask you for a score prediction. What are you feeling?
So I watched Dundee play up at Pittodrie the other night there, and I was impressed, particularly in the second half when they brought Josh Mulligan on at half time. I thought he made a huge difference to the team. I'm not sure if he'll start, because obviously McKibben will come back for his suspension after being sent off at Livingston. So you would think that given McKibben's form this season, he'll probably come straight back in the team rather than Mulligan getting a start. But they're really strong from middle to the front, and they've now got options coming off the bench as well. They've signed Mickey Mellon for Burnley, who had a really good sort of sub appearance at Livingston last week. So there is options there, and I do think that they're a team that you do have to respect. Can they still offer opportunities? Of course. I don't think their back four is particularly strong, although I do rate Trevor Carson as a goalkeeper.
I will just point out as well, mind that Owen Beck's back on loan.
Well, that's the thing, And I do think he still offers more going forward than he does from a defensive point of view. But what I would say is it's going to be a difficult game tomorrow. It wouldn't shock me if it was a draw. I would probably go for a 1-0 draw. I think if you look at the next 3 fixtures, we've got Dundee away, St Johnstone away, Motherwell home. If you got 7 points out of those 9, that would be a great return. Because although people will say, well, teams have got an opportunity to get a couple of points closer to you, they've all got to play each other. It's not like St Mirren and Kilmarnock and Aberdeen and Hibs are all going to get separate games every week. They're either going to be playing the Old Firm or playing each other most times. So that gap that we've got in teams, if we can at least just sort of keep plugging away and adding to it at our end, we're putting ourselves in a really strong position. But I've liked what I've seen for Dundee this season. I would say that they and Kilmarnock have had the best sort of transfer business out of the whole league going back into the summer as well. And I don't think it'll be an easy match tomorrow. So yeah, I would say one each.
Aye, no, I think you're right. Again, that point you make as well about the fact that there is that 10-point gap there. It's there, so it does relieve some of the pressure going into these games against a team that I think will probably make top 6. Personally, I think Dundee are looking pretty good. And again, if you can go away to a team like that and get a point, it's not the worst result. If you're in 5th place and chasing 3rd, we get a lot of people grumbling. If you're in 3rd by 10 points, then it's not the end of the world. So we'll go for a 1-0 draw. I'm going to be even more optimistic. I'm going to go for a 2-1 win to the Jam Tarts. So we shall see. Right, anyway, I know time's getting on, so I'll let you go, Scott, because I know you've got better things to be doing than spend your time chatting to me. But just want to say thanks so much for coming on. Thank you so much as well to everyone that's watching, everyone that's subscribed to the site. Just a wee reminder, of course, if you want to do that, you can subscribe at heartstandard.co.uk/subscribe. There's a few different subscriptions offers there, including for first-time subscribers, you can get £1 for 6 months of access. And on the site, we've got a whole bunch of content based around the game. So we've got our predicted lineup, so it'll be going up very shortly. We've got Q&As from Stephen Naismith and Scott Fraser that will be going up tonight and tomorrow morning. And in the Naismith one, I know he expands on Lawrence Shanklin's contract situation, so we'll have a wee bit more information on that. We'll have our usual post-match analysis on the Whistle tomorrow afternoon, and then we'll have our stats bomb analysis pieces and our tactics debrief looking ahead, looking back at the game, and they'll go out on Sunday and Monday. Anyway, I've rambled enough now. I've plugged enough stuff. I'll let everyone get on with their day. So thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you again soon. Cheers.
Cheers.